Well, Clive Owen, working now on the Knick for Cinemax. This character, Dr. Thackeray, boy, he is complex and just seems like a very juicy part for an actor. What drew you to wanting to do this?
Um, I was so taken with the script. Stephen called me up and said that he'd read the script. He was thinking about turning it into a 10-hour television series and wanted me to read it. And I was shooting something else, sitting on a trailer, and I thought I'd just start reading and get a flavor of what this thing is like. And 45 minutes later, I knew I'd have to do it. It was that good a piece of writing and such a great character. It's such a. I knew a little bit about the world it was set because I did this small movie called Century many years ago, which was set at the turn of the century in the world of medicine, and I'd done a bit of research for that. So I knew that this was a very exciting time, in the world of medicine, and I just thought it was the most original and kind of very unusual for a period piece as well. It felt kind of visceral and dangerous and edgy, and it was unlike anything I've read.
And how much beyond the pilot did they fill you in on so that you would know the arc of the character for a first year?
Well, obviously that was a concern. You read one script and you think, first the fear is, will they be able to keep this standard up because this is so good? And then you wonder where they're going to take it. And so the next stage was to get on the phone with Mike and Jack, the writers, and Stephen, and all of us together. And it became clear very quickly that they'd done an enormous amount of research. Not only was my character inspired by a real doctor, William Halsted, but they had just sort of, completely immersed themselves in New York of 1900, in the world of medicine, and they just had so much that they wanted to put into it. And then they talked me through the sort of journey of Thackeray, really, and said, this is where we'd like to take it, this is the world we want to go in, and this is where we want to end it. And I was, totally convinced after that conversation that it was something I wanted to do. And I have to say, credit to them, it happened very quickly. Once it all came together, it was only a few months really before we started shooting, and I was convinced we'd be waiting for some scripts, and that obviously there is a concern that the following scripts would be as good as the first, and they just delivered all 10 scripts before we started shooting, and all of them were of such high quality.
Well, that's a rare thing. When I interviewed them last week, Jack and Michael, we talked about that that's a real luxury for everybody involved in the production, that you've got that full arc of that whole season already written.
I mean, I couldn't believe, even when Stephen was saying to me, oh no, I'm planning to try and get all the scripts done before we start shooting, it just didn't seem possible in the time that the guys could come through with it. But it wasn't just that they did it in the time, it was just the quality of the writing was so high, and they were so kind of quick, and the scripts were on a par with that original pilot script.
Well, they said that you did one thing that they thought was very intriguing, because you would shoot scenes from different episodes over the course of a day or a week or whatever, I guess, to use the same sets. You were at that different stages of that person, of your character's life, and you wanted to be able to keep up with like his drug use and where his mind was at any given moment, even though you might be shooting different time frames of that particular year. So how did you do that, and why did you do that?
Well, that came really, I kind of stole the whiteboard idea from Stephen. I went to one of their brainstorming sessions where they were talking about scenes and sort of moving things around, and Stephen had this big whiteboard on the wall, and it made things very easy, and he could see the sort of full 10 hours and where to put scenes and how to move them around. When Stephen said, look, I want to board this like a movie, i.e. I don't want to shoot episodically, my first instinct was that's fine, because you shoot every movie out of sequence, and I'm used to sort of preparing for that. But very quickly realized that carrying 10 hours was enormous, really, and that I needed a visual graph. I needed something where I could look at. So both in at work, in my dressing room, and at home, I had a big board with a list of all the scenes, all the episodes, and the one brilliant thing about playing a character like Thackeray is because he is a drug addict, there's always more than the scene going on. You know, that a huge investment into each scene is where he is and sort of his drug intake. You know, are we in a period where he's in need of drugs? Is he taking too many drugs? You know, and it was really important to just plot that. But we moved so fast and we literally jumped. Like when we shot in Thackeray's house, we did every scene out of the 10 episodes in a couple of days. So I'm jumping around, and it's quite, you know, it's quite a journey he goes on, and it was just a huge help having a visual graph of all that, really.
You've worked with so many incredible directors over your career. What do you like about Steven Soderbergh?
He's unlike any director I've ever worked with. I mean, he has an unbelievable brain, really, to be able to carry, to shoot this the way that he shot it, and to carry the whole thing and do it with, you know, such incisiveness and such style, and it was really something to witness. I mean, you know, it's probably known that he does everything. He lights, he operates, he directs, he edits, and it's so refreshing and reassuring having such a singular vision. You feel in such great hands, and you feel he's completely. I've never come across a director who's so on top of all aspects of putting a film together, and you know, he has an amazing team around him that have worked with him many times. They are incredibly on top of their game and incredibly efficient, and what's great for an actor is it just leaves you to do what you've got to do and be worrying about the scenes you're doing with, knowing that you're just in, you know, you're taken great care of, and you're in the hands of somebody who is so on top of their game.
I would think also as an actor, I mean, when you've got so many things going on and you've got such a interesting, intricate character to play, just knowing that somebody like that you could trust them, that you could just do your job and trust them.
There's no question that him, you know, directing all 10 was a, you know, a big part of the reason why I did it and why I wanted to do it, because exactly of that. You know, I've been a big fan of, you know, a lot of his films, and I just felt, you know, that we had the potential with this material to really make something special.
And you know, Michael said something interesting last week that I thought, especially from an acting standpoint, they said as the writers, they know the color spectrum of, you know, the work, the world that they're in. But they said Steven he's like, he sees it in ultraviolet. He sees it in a whole different frame than even they do as the writers. Well,
I mean, the brilliant thing about Steven is that he has a very strong perspective. He can look at a scene a number of times and get a very clear idea of where the camera should go and what story should be told out of this scene. He's not somebody that just goes in and covers the scene generically and says, okay, that actor speaks, we cover that actor. He comes in every single scene with a clear perspective, and sometimes it's a very dynamic, unusual one. But it's just really incisive, intelligent, bold, brave filmmaking.
I want to ask you about two other filmmakers you worked with, if you don't mind. One, you had to be just totally thrilled last season when Alfonso Cuarón, your director of Children of Men, got on that run and just won every award in the world, including the Oscar.
Yeah, I was totally thrilled. I mean, I adore Alfonso both as a director and as a human being, and it took him a long time to put that film together. And the thing that really struck me when I saw it, it was such a singular vision, and to a large extent, only he really knew what that film could be and what the potential was. You pitch that movie and you say it's about, you know, two people in space and but it was the execution of it that was everything. And you know, for him to pull that film off, and I thought it was technically one of the most dazzling things I'd ever seen. And I think that, you know, the shifting of perspective, just the way that film was put together, it was a new experience, and I was totally thrilled for him. Yeah.
And we lost the director that got you your first Oscar nomination, Mike Nichols, a few days ago. Just tell us a great memory of him.
Probably the smartest and soundest human being I've ever met, really. I mean, it was a pleasure just to be in that guy's company. You know, he was such a brilliant guy, and he proved himself so many times over and did such remarkable work. and did it with such grace and dignity and intelligence. And I remember when we did Closer, there was a 2-week rehearsal period where we'd all get together and sit and not necessarily work the material, but just talk around the material and get a sort of flavor of where Mike was going to take the movie. And it was one of the most memorable couple of weeks I spent, because it was just drinking in Mike Nichols every day. And he was such a special guy, and it's a huge loss.
You did the play as well, right? Closer.
Yeah, it was a very unique experience, really, because I played Dan on the stage, the other part, in the original production at the National, and to get the opportunity 7 years later to play Larry, it was a real lesson in discovering as an actor. You look at a piece of material through your character's perspective. When I read a script, I know what part I'm reading for, and I'm looking at the whole world of that movie or that story from my character's perspective. And to get the opportunity, having worked the play, know how great the dialogue was, know what a sort of, really strong, dazzling piece of writing it was, but to see it suddenly from the other guy's perspective and it was like doing something completely fresh and new, but incredibly familiar at the same time. So it was a very, special experience.
What brought that about? What along the way did they say, he played this on the stage, but we want to make him the other character for the movie?
Well, I think Patrick knew that when I read the play very, very early on, before they even workshopped it at the National, before it became a proper, fully fledged play that was going to be put on, and I wanted to play Larry, but I was too young. And Patrick said, "No, you're too young. But we'd love you to do Dan." And I said, "Listen, there's 4 great parts. I'll play anything. I want to be a part of this." And I think it was Patrick's thing to Mike, who said, "I think Clive, could do Larry."
And how did Mike Nichols change up? Well, from your experience on stage to what you did in the film, what did he do that was different?
Well, I know for a fact that since seeing the play, he'd contacted Patrick regularly about, whenever you're ready to do a film, I'd love to do it. So obviously, he really struck a nerve with him. He really responded to the writing. Mike Nichols is often regarded as one of the great sort of acting directors. When I look at something like Angels in America, I consider it some of the best ensemble acting I've ever seen anywhere. And time again, people that work with Mike Nichols, you just see, and people say, why is it? Why does Mike Nichols pull out performances from actors? And I think he's one of those guys who makes actors feel like they can do anything. He's incredibly smart, so you want to deliver for him because he's so smart. And not only that, but he kind of looks after everybody, and he makes them feel like they can do anything. And sometimes you hear stories of people directing movies and they put people under pressure because their character's supposed to be under pressure, and I'm really not a great believer of that. I think the way that Mike Nichols does it, which is just make an actor feel like they can do it and really fly with something, is a much smarter and better way to do things.
Well, I don't know the exact number, but he directed, I think, somewhere around 15 people actors to Oscar nominations. So it's one of the highest numbers of any director in history.
Yeah, he literally is probably the smartest human being I've ever met.
I heard somebody say right after his passing that they had commented to him one time. They said, if he was sitting alone at a table at a restaurant, the IQ of that table was incredible. If one person sat down with him, even a smart person, the IQ would drop tremendously.
It's a good line.
Speaking of your Oscar nomination, I was looking back over my history on my computer here, and you joined the Academy right after that. So you've been voting all these years, and I love to ask Oscar voters this whenever I get a chance, and that is, and you don't have to be specific if you don't want to and name specific people, but just when you've got that ballot and you're an actor, what are you looking for? How do you know you want to vote for somebody?
It's really a response to the thing. You don't set out looking for something. You get hit by something. You watch a movie. You're struck by a performance or a piece of directing that you're really taken with. And I literally just go for what I think is it's very, very hard, because often films are so different, and to try and distinguish between them and say something's better than something else is often just what's made the biggest impact, really, that I'm very kind of touched and affected by, and impressed by.
Do the pre-Oscar awards like Globes and SAG and Critics Awards, do they influence you at all?
No, not at all. No, honestly, I look at everything, I watch everything, and it wouldn't affect me at all, anything else that was going on in terms of things winning other things.
Well, you won the Globe for Closer back in that year, and you're going to be eligible here for the Golden Globes here for the Knick, and you were up just a couple of years ago for Hemingway as well. We've got you, all hundreds and hundreds of voters. I've got you right at the top of the prediction center to win, so I hope that doesn't put any pressure on you.
Thanks for that. You've just jinxed it.
No, no, no. The Golden Globes, and you've talked to the Hollywood Foreign Press over the years. They love new shows. They want to be the first to honor a new show. Talk about just when you are in front of them doing a conference or doing a Q&A, just what that means to you and promoting your films and TV work.
No, I mean they're hugely important, and it's they've become very familiar because sort of work with them an awful lot, and it's great that they celebrate new shows. I think that we should. I mean, when it comes to the Knick, for me it was such a bold, original piece of writing, and I think Stephen's executed it so brilliantly. It's a piece of work that I'm extremely proud of.
Well, I think all the Guild Awards are coming up too. I think I told Michael and Jack that I really feel like it's going to do so well with cinematography and art direction and sound and just all of those. And of course, Stevens I think is going to clean up at the Directors Guild. I just think it's going to do so well with all these technical awards.
I'm glad you think that, because I thought that. I mean, Stephen does surround himself with just the most brilliantly talented people, and the set design on that show was unbelievable. Even you walking around the set to the eye as you go around. You walk in those labs, you open those drawers, and they were full of sort of specific instruments, and they were just so impressive even to be in. And it's a great support for an actor when you've got that around you, when you feel that your environment is really substantial. And I think all across the board, Ellen, who did the costumes, did a really fantastic job. They were totally kind of authentic and faithful to the period, but really kind of stylish and captured the essence of what the scripts were trying to capture.
Well, talking about art direction, I just love the scenes in that operating auditorium that you have. As an actor, did you kind of feel like God in there?
Well, what was amazing is I'd seen an awful lot of pictures from original operating theatres, and it was kind of lifted from them, and it was just so authentic and faithful to what those operating theatres were. I mean, there are pictures that I could show you that are exactly that theatre, and that was what was beautiful about all of the hospitalry and all of the sets and the labs and everything. It was just so they were, inspired by the real thing and then sort of beautifully executed.
And as we finish up here, what takes you to Vancouver? What's going on up there?
I'm shooting a film with Bob Nelson, who wrote Nebraska, and it's his first time directing, and it's a script that I was really, really touched by, and really wanting to do it, called The Confirmation. It stars this boy Jaden, who just starred in St. Vincent, who's the most phenomenal young actor, and the majority of the film is me and him. It's sort of inspired by The Bicycle Thief, and I play a guy in a similar kind of world that Nebraska was set, who gets his toolkit stolen out the back of his van, and me and my young boy spend the rest of the movie trying to get it back. And it's a really beautifully written script, and so we're just in the middle of shooting it.
He worked. We interviewed him last year at this time for the Oscar race, and he has worked so long in his career to get to this point.
Oh, and he's such a nice guy, such a smart guy, and it's a really beautifully written script. It's so precise. It's as precise as the play, and it's a very touching story.
What's the timeline looking like for a release? Like next fall time frame?
I would think so. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, listen, good luck with the upcoming, maybe the Golden Globes and the SAG Awards, and we are really enjoying the Knick. So glad it's coming back for a second season as well.
Great. Thanks very much.